Login accepted.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the tech capital of the world. My name is Bobby Dave, CEO and founder of Foundry. And Kevin, we have great news today. We know what the best job in America is.
We figured it out.
And
Well, we read a story.
Figured it out. We're going to tell everyone what that is. You know, so like, I think,
yeah. Any
no
guesses
surprise here
from anybody? Is it?
What's the best job in America? Let's put it in chat there and see kind of.
Is it owner of Wrangler of AI? Is that the best job? Is that what you would call
prompt
it?
engineer?
Yeah, prompt engineer. I'm gonna put that on my resume. Yeah. Prompt master.
Prompt engineer for Chat GPT.
GPT. Yeah.
So,
GPT. I like
barista,
it. That's a
bartender?
classy title. Huh? What is it?
Barista, bartender, is that in the top one?
Oh,
Airline pilot.
Airline pilot. Airline pilot. Everyone wants to be an airline pilot. Everyone wants to be an astronaut when they were a kid, right? Astronaut, airline pilot.
Yeah, it's the best job.
Does everybody want to be a coder now? Is it? No, everyone wants to be a YouTube star. I don't think that's the thing.
Yeah, Coded After 30 said movie star. I'm like, man, you're so last week, dude. Like, it's definitely a YouTube star. So
movie star. Yeah, that's what we would say. That puts you in that puts you in our boomer category there. Well, sorry. That's
it would be YouTube star.
Not that we're also not in it. I'm just saying.
No, I mean, but like, come on,
Star.
really? Do you want to be Mr. Beast or Tom Cruise? I mean, it's obviously Mr. Beast, like that's just where you need to be. So,
well, maybe. Hold on, Mikey says drawing cool Spider-Man pics is the greatest job in America. Somebody did get paid to draw that Spider-Man picture.
They did.
Literally, it was on the job. So
it was on the job.
It was on the job, so it was part of the job. So technically, someone did get paid to draw that. That is a killer job. No, so
just win the lottery and not have a job. Hey, that lottery tomorrow's. What is it up to?
It's over $1 billion, right? I don't know what it's
over $1 billion
currently at, but no, it was over $1 billion the last time when nobody won it, right? So
yeah,
it is definitely currently over $1 billion. But I was seeing, we were talking about this the other day. The lottery is the only industry that can advertise you're going to win over $1 billion and give you 400 million,
right?
And get away with it without getting sued or something. Like, every other industry.
The same organization taxes it.
Yes. It's government, right? Government. Yeah. That's just how it works. One rule for one for another. There's no other industry that would be allowed to do that. Tell you you're winning $1 billion and like, here you go, here's your 400 million. You're like, I thought I won $1 billion.
So
taxes and fees.
$5 billion. Your cash value is $707 million.
Okay, that's hold on, that's before taxes. So you actually come out with about it's 400 something million. I saw the thing on it. I was like, wow. Okay, less than half. Not that I don't want to win. I don't want to put out bad karma that I don't want to win because I will be buying.
I want to win. I
will be buying a ticket. We'll be on like super steroids if we win. We'll be here with like red cameras and like we'll be on
robot
location.
Cameras.
We'll still be live next Thursday, but we'll be
AI generated backgrounds.
Exactly. We'll be in the Bahamas shooting this or something. It'll be all remote. It'll be amazing. But we'll still be here.
Yeah.
Promise.
Yeah.
Promise we'll still be here.
We'll start filming them like Mandalorian, the volumes, what they call it, have some Unreal Engine backgrounds.
Exactly. We have some virtual set that we shoot on. Be amazing. But, just for fun, really, more than anything.
Yeah. Speaking of Mandalorian, I know this is probably, we're really getting off a tangent now, but like, you realize that Pedro Pascal, who plays Mandalorian, is not even going to be, he's filming The Last of Us at the same time Mandalorian Season 3 is being filmed. And there's this rumor that he's not even in the suit over half the time. He's just doing voiceover.
Oh, wow.
That's the sweetest voiceover gig ever.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm sure he's getting a nice salary.
Yeah, he's getting paid the same.
So successful. Yeah.
So his name's attached to it, not the guy Frank who's in the suit who's running around doing all the stunts, and stuff like that.
Yeah. Interesting.
So anyway.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to Last of Us. I think it's gonna be good. I like zombie stuff, so
yeah.
And it's HBO, so it's got good reviews. So it's on Sunday. If you don't No.
Yeah, one guy said, Lazy J says, I quit because of ChatGPT.
We got
some news for you.
Hold on a minute. Lazy J, name checks out.
Lazy J checks out right there.
Name checks out. I'm just saying. That's funny. We will we'll talk about ChatGPT in a little bit because it's an interesting topic that I think we're just going to continue to keep talking about, right? Because people keep talking about it, having new opinions on it, and new news keeps coming up. We're going to talk about some of the news that came up about it. So yeah, we're going to be talking about
Let's talk about the best job in America. That's why everyone's here. I see that.
Yeah. Let's get to that. So
yeah,
it's based on this article, right? Which is in Market Watch, which is based on the Census Bureau's statistics, like pulled out these things for the top jobs in America, basically. I know this is a very patriotic thing. We're talking about America, but this is what this article is based on. So this is why we're talking about this. We're not saying this is the same in a lot of other countries.
Career Builder, a lot of different sources to come up with this.
Yep. So here's the criteria that they're using for this: median salary, job satisfaction, work-life balance, stress level, unemployment rate, big one, and the growth. And we know for sure that definitely salary, satisfaction, unemployment, and growth sector in the job that we're going to talk about is high. Work-life balance and stress level have gotten better, right? But we'll talk about that a little bit. But we'll talk about that.
The stress could be like, depends on where you're working, so like kind of stuff.
Exactly.
We'll talk about that a little bit.
So once you get into this article, whatever, basically they have this little drum roll section. Medium salary, 121,000, based on the Bureau of Labor Statistics data and salary ranges. Best job in America is software developer.
And it's been that way for a long time. I mean, like it does.
It's been in the top 5 for years.
5. It's always for years.
I think so. Number 2 this year is nurse, which was number 1 last year. So
right.
I will show you why I think that switched here in a second, and you'll be surprised why. Because of all the talk around ChatGPT taking everyone's jobs, you'll be surprised around the number of jobs that are predicted to be in this area. Which look at this.
Exactly.
25% increase in these positions in the next 10 years. That's huge. That's a massive amount of increase.
Yeah,
it's big. It's big. So
here's the thing: it's not only the increase, the 25% increase is big, right? But the other problem, not the problem, but the great thing about it is it's bigger than number 2 by a long margin to begin with.
It is.
So not only is it bigger, it's growing faster.
Yep.
So it's really crazy.
Yep. There's a link here somewhere. I think it's this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, here we go. So it was number 1. The projected jobs, 300. Let me blow that up just a little bit, make it a little bit bigger. Was 370,600 for number 1. The projected jobs for nurses was only 112. If you start looking down the list, none of them are in the 300s. Most of them aren't even in the 100,000 projected jobs. It's a massive number. Massive.
So what this is telling you is when people are looking at like business in America and like things that are really needed, there is the medical sector, which is we're always going to need nurses, doctors. So like if you want to do that, go for it. You'll have a job for sure. Yep. But when you look at the amount of software that's being written, the amount of systems that have to be integrated, it's like 370,000 is just like the tip of the iceberg. It's like, it's so big and so huge, and like every business is getting into it. And even today, when we talk about this today, I say this a lot, like not everything that has been integrated has been integrated yet. There needs to be integrated, has been integrated yet. When you still see things, major parts of society still using paper, those kind of things, it's just not integrated. There's a lot more work that can be done to do some things, that can help us out here.
Here's a great point that we've talked about a lot off stream.
Yes.
What about all the big tech layoffs?
So let's talk about it. Let's talk about Google as a company and Facebook as a company. Those are 2 big ones. So a lot of people assume that the layoffs were all software developers, like for some reason, just because they're a tech company.
Tech companies.
That was all coders getting laid off. It's not. I mean, it's customer service. There's business departments, business segments that got shut down. That's
entire recruiting departments got laid off.
Recruiting departments
because they weren't hiring, which makes sense.
They weren't hiring. So like, there's some things in here. You also have big tech companies, specifically Facebook and Google, or they're having problems in social media advertising. So like, does pay-per-click ads still work? Does it still resonate with conversion rates? and our anecdotal evidence is like it's kind of a tough go out there. When we run ads, it doesn't do as well as we would like for the money that we spent. So like, I think a lot of people are figuring that out too. And so like, it's really hard to sell pay-per-click ads, especially with, you've got devices all over the place. Before, Google just had to focus on the browser. As long as that browser runs my ads, we're good. Now you have browsers, mobile devices, and people are listening to podcasts just on the radio. Like, how does that ad get translated into that? So like, it's a problem for Facebook, and that's why Facebook said, "Hey, I want to pivot to VR." That's why they're investing $10 billion into VR, because they're like, they see the writing on the wall. Even though they're making a boatload of cash over here on Facebook ads, they do know that could end.
Yep. I think what happened is,
or be smaller than it is today.
Yeah, when the pandemic
hit, not necessarily the end, but be
when
smaller.
The pandemic hit, the big tech companies made a ton of money, right? They made an absolute ton of money that they then decided to spend on hiring. They hired a bunch of people they didn't really need, and they right-sized. That's what happened.
Yeah. That's what
Trust
happens.
me, go down the street and ask your local company whether they're hiring developers or not, because they are. Ask if they've let their developers go. They haven't. We see it because we're in that market. We're in a smaller market. We're not generally sending out. Yeah, we're generally not sending our students off to Facebook or Google or whatever. That's more of a rarity for us. We're sending them to local companies that are, trust me, are still hiring. So.
Yeah, so when you look at layoffs, you say, "Oh, that's 11,000 people that got laid off." You don't realize that they hired 40,000 in the last 3 years.
Right, that was the other thing too. The net gain was plus. The net gain endpoint was definitely plus.
Yeah, and Jack, like Jack the Bear here, we'll just say, like, think about this too. Like, are you applying to those 4 companies? Facebook, Google, Microsoft, whatever. And if you're not going to be impacted by that. Just because they're laying off doesn't mean that every other company is laying off too. So like, when you watch CNN, you watch the news, they're saying, "Hey, recession's coming," and it is probably. I mean, maybe already here, depending on how you look at it. But when you look at tech as a sector, companies aren't going out of business. They may be getting smaller. How do they get smaller? How can they get better? Well, they've got to write systems that are more integrated, and that means they're going to hire coders.
Yep.
Yep.
I mean, like that report said, 370,000 new jobs. They're not. It's more. It's not. It's not less. Also the same thing. Yeah, lying because they overhired. That's exactly it. They did overhire. And then they right-sized.
Like, for companies of this large too, you got to understand that in the fourth quarter they do this because they got to manage stock price expectations. They got earning calls. They got earnings season, and they need that to look good for for VCs and those kinds of things like that. They're still making tons and tons and tons of money. Like Google, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, they haven't gone anywhere, and they won't go anywhere unless, maybe Facebook. Like I said, if one of them goes out of business, it'll be Facebook. But he's pivoting to VR, so he's trying, Yep.
Yeah. Don't let those kind of like major headlines scare you off the career. Especially when somebody like Brewer Labor Statistics is literally telling you there's 370,000 new jobs, it's the best career in America. And then somebody over here is telling you, well, who's totally not even in the field, is just telling you, well, I saw that Facebook's laying off. Yeah, Facebook's laying off. Don't become a developer. They just don't know, man.
And they're not all developers. It's customer service reps, just in different segments, So like,
big tech. We say this a lot. Like when you think about technology jobs, the average person thinks about big tech. They think about FANG. Yeah. They think about Silicon Valley. They don't think about the fact that technology and developers are in every industry. Think about the other day, right? When the FAA system went down, right? That's a piece of software someone has to fix. You traditionally wouldn't think of that as being a place where you would go and be a developer, right? But I guarantee you, they have a bunch of developers there. Somebody probably got fired over it, to be honest.
Someone got fired.
Somebody messed up somewhere, right? I don't know what the exact reason is, but somebody messed up somewhere. I guess Congress are going to look into it. Did you see that?
Exactly. Congress is going to fire somebody. I mean,
somebody messed up somewhere that's going to cause somebody to get fired if they're not already. Yeah. But it's another field where you wouldn't think there are developers, but there are, because they're in everything. They're literally in every sector of the industry, even down to like agriculture, even down to things where you wouldn't even think they were. They're there. Think past big tech. That's the thing.
Think past it. So like, there's people that are writing code in a lot of sectors that you wouldn't think about. When you think about architecture, they're now rolling out sensors to these massive farms so they can see the the moisture rate and all these kind of things, and they can get like metrics on their farm. Whereas before, the farmer would look out over the North 40 and go, I think we need to water out there. The corn's looking a little dry, but now they can like tell it if it's
exactly. Now there's a system. Exactly. Now there's sensors out there that pull into a system that tells them exactly. Yeah. Here you go. Paul's on fire today. He has all the same points too, because he's talking about again a grocery store, HEB, definitely hiring. People will always need to eat. There you go. His point was people may not need Twitter, but they will still need to eat. So there will still be developers at grocery stores.
Right. Yeah. And think about this too. Like when you think about Facebook, Twitter, could society exist without these companies? 100%. Like it's not like these are required things and you might be addicted to Twitter, addicted to Facebook, but like if they went away, you would live. I mean, like it's gonna be okay.
Right.
And then another company would just rise and fill in that space. I mean, like, so it's not that, so they don't own technology sector. They're just in the technology sector, and that particular company may be having a harder time, than normal.
I strongly suggest everyone go read this article.
Read it.
There's a lot in here. This is not like, here's the other thing about this article. It's not really, it's not, I wouldn't say it's 100%, it's not an opinion, right? It's based on these things. It comes down to you making a decision at the end of the day because you're weighing up these things. But it's not really an opinion. It's based on numbers. It's based on trends. It's based on research that they do. It's not just somebody like, it's not just us saying like, hey, learn to code. Come and learn to code with us because like, we want you to spend your money with us. Exactly. That's not what we're saying. We're in this space because of things like this.
Because of this, because people need training. People need to know, how do I get into this? The cool thing about this is like a degree's not required. And so like,
yes.
Finally, after, us doing this since 2014, people are coming around the fact, hey, you know what, maybe this bootcamp thing, it might stick around. Maybe
it does actually mention it.
Maybe college isn't the best way to learn how to code. I mean, so like, I think that's what they're saying, that people are hiring actually out of boot camps. And now what we're seeing, and this is anecdotally because just Coder Foundry experience, companies calling into us saying, who's the best in the class? Who's the top coming out right now? Can we hire them? And I think that happens at every boot camp. That's any reputable boot camp. Now there's some out there that aren't reputable. I'm not going to name names or talk down any boot camp, but like you can learn how to code cheaper than you could before and less time, and get a job and continue to develop your career. What the naysayers say is the coding engineer that's like been at it for 15 years or 20 years. And then they look at a bootcamp grad and they say they suck and they can't ever get a job because they don't know what I know. And people don't realize that you have to start at the bottom somewhere, and you can break in with skills that are limited according to the 20-year-old veteran that says it won't work. And somehow he thinks that everyone is at his level instantaneously. Right. There's other people, and I don't understand this. I don't know, maybe you can speak to this, Kevin. It's like, because I have a 4-year degree, I have to defend my 4-year degree in the marketplace because it lessens me somehow if someone just went to a boot camp and got a job.
Because it lessens the time that I've put in, and I feel like, but we've seen this. We know for a fact that somebody getting a 4-year degree gets the exact same job that somebody's been to a boot camp.
Right, and they think that's somehow unfair or whatever.
Well, it is. And so then it is when you think about it. It's like,
I was talking to an academic the other day, and they're like, but Bobby, I agree with you. They can come out of your boot camp and get a job, but the academic was saying, but if they want to be in advancement, they want to be in management, they're going to have a degree. I'm like, really?
Well, we've seen
a degree in computer science to manage a team of developers. You're saying that that's a requirement. And he goes, yeah. And I'm like, okay, that's, my degree's in finance, right? I mean, like,
right. And that's the thing, like that might be your requirement, but you can't put that on everybody else because that's not true. We know it's not true. We've had graduates that have gone into...
Usually the guy running the team, believe it or not, is usually an MBA sales guy or an MBA business dev guy that's trying to get the requirements down, or it's a project manager that understands the company really well. And then they have a tech lead, maybe that's understand the tech lot well. But usually the super techie guys aren't running the team because we need them to write code.
Right.
It's usually the business dev guy that's running the company. The CTO sometimes is an accountant. I've met plenty of CTOs at banks that don't know anything about technology. They're accountants. That's their training, because they're managing a budget of stuff, and that's why it always says, oh, it came down from the white ivory tower. They don't understand what I'm doing. And that's where that comes from, because they don't. I mean, they're not technologists. They're ivory tower people.
Here's a specific point, Jack, with the great questions today. Thanks for.
That's a great question.
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
what is it? What like in between all this, software development doesn't mean just web development.
No,
all right, but web development probably makes up the majority of the jobs in that 370,000.
It's definitely a big part, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a big part of it. So we think today, still, full stack web devs, the best way to break in. We see that's the most jobs. What are the other segments you could go into? You could go into data science. And so you could go into Windows development, mobile development, game development. You could go into a lot of different things, but all of those stacks are different. I want you to understand that. So it matters what you learn. And when you're learning, you're actually putting yourself into a certain part of the marketplace. So with web development, it's JavaScript, HTML, CSS, and some kind of server-side language with SQL. So there's like 5 things you really need to know. We think that server-side language by far is C#. But it could be Java, it could be JavaScript, Node.js, and things like that. That's what we think. Now, can you learn web development in different stacks? Absolutely. It's just some stacks are more used than others. And so you want to get the broadest stack that you can to target the most jobs that you can, because you can't learn specifically and then search for your job broadly. That's what the mistake a lot of people make. You have to like search in the niche that you're trained in. It gives you the best opportunity to land. A lot of people think I'm just going to learn to code, and they learn, Python scripting or something like that, and they go apply to a web dev job they're not using Python. Python is majoritarily used in data science realm. So if you learn Python, you need to be looking at data science roles if you want to have the best chance of success. We made a video on this about creating luck, and that's what we think. You want to create luck in your job search, be very specific in your job search, and learn a specific thing and target specific jobs, and you have a lot better chance of winning.
Yeah,
so
last video
we think web development is the way. Yeah, the web development is the way to go right now. But if you call us next year and we're talking about mobile development or VR development, don't get mad at us like we changed our mind. The market does shift. And the only thing we can talk about is today, like right here standing today, what can we do? What's my best avenue? Web development. So still the biggest part.
Okay, let's talk about this real quick. Muhammad says, hello, are you both? Hello, both. I hope you're both great. We're doing great. I have a question for you. Are you talking about jobs in America only for American people or for anyone outside the USA like Asia? So the report is specifically talking about US jobs. It's the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, but it's not talking about US only people in those jobs.
Right. Yeah. And if you go into any large bank or financial organization, say you're made up of people from all over the world. So I can't speak to the visa situation. So that's typically to be in the US, it's H-1B visa to start out. You got to get a green card.
There's just a number of those every year, isn't there? That's the thing.
Yeah. So like, how do you do that? I also can't speak to offshoring projects. Like, so does this mean a software developer is working on a project in the US, but they're stationed in India and abroad? And we still say that's a thing. I mean, like, people have been offshoring talent forever. So learning how to code, whether what country you're in, maybe if you want to benefit of what's going on in the US, you have to latch onto a firm that's working for US companies. But I would imagine that the same kind of relative thing is true in every modern country, what I would say. And let's call it developed countries. Obviously, if you're in a country that isn't developed, then maybe software isn't the best job out there. Maybe there's some other jobs that are more important to that society. But like, if you're living in Hong Kong or, big cities in India or Malaysia, or whatever, like, it is important. And there's companies in there writing code and running websites, and they're also working for US-based companies. London for sure, still London, Europe, pretty big, I would imagine.
Yeah, definitely.
So I hope that helps, gives you hope.
Okay, before we move on, just want to put this up here. Igor says, fun how you managed to inspire me even after your almost 3 years viewer. Keep it up, brothers. Thanks.
All right, cool.
Thanks for watching, Igor. Thanks for watching the videos. Thanks for hanging out. We super appreciate it. We appreciate every single view we get on our videos. Whenever we put a video out, we still track them. We still, like, the next day or an hour after we put it out, here's what happens. An hour after we put a video out, Bobby and I always talk and be like, how's it doing? Like, we always, every time, don't we? Still, even today, we've put out hundreds of videos and we still talk about how videos are doing today. So every watch matters to us. It really does.
It does. That's right.
It really does. So thank you for watching. We appreciate it. Okay, let's move on a little bit to this ChatGPT thing. Specifically,
so this is Yeah, it's a big thing. I mean, like everyone's talking about it. And so like we're making a video now about this, but like this is what I want people to understand, that Microsoft is going to invest up to $10 billion in the company called OpenAI, which makes ChatGPT and DALL-E 2. So DALL-E 2 being the image one, OpenAI being this undergrounding thing that really powers GitHub Copilot, which Microsoft also owns GitHub. So like they're doing it, and they're going to get 75% of the profits for the 49% stake, which is, in terms of, if you think about it, they run this thing like they're the mafia. You know, like this is like this is a
they're
mafia
basically saying that
right
they want their money back on it. So here's what I looked at. So here's what I looked at, which I thought was super interesting, was this chart. Sorry if it's a little bit blurry, but this shows you where a $10 billion investment fits into the rest of Microsoft's kind of portfolio of products, right? Cloud being the biggest at 52, Office products being worth almost 40 billion, Windows being worth 23, gaming worth 15, LinkedIn is worth $10 billion. This is a LinkedIn size investment in a platform. To not own it, to not buy it, to be 49% kind of ownership.
Owner in it.
49% like stakeholder in it. That's a crazy large investment.
So there's a couple of things that are going on here that I think the large people need to understand. Number one, if you look at the 31% of Azure right there, they're looking at AI driving cloud services. So right now, OpenAI is running on Azure, and that $10 billion investment also includes some free credits from Azure that they're running it on.
You know, they're making that back.
Yeah, they're making it back. And so like the CEO of OpenAI just recently said, it's crazy to see how much it costs per query to run a ChatGPT request. And it
said it was pennies, right? It was multiple cents per query.
Per query, though.
Yeah, right.
And you're like, oh, that's not much. But then when you say it's going to replace coding, and you're like, well, how many queries would I make in a day to do this? And what would my company overall price be to that? And that's one of the things that people are going to have to decide whether this is actually worth doing or not. Because like it could be very expensive. It could get real expensive. So let's say the cost is 3 cents. That means it's going to be a nickel or more, or 10 cents or 25 cents a query above and above that, because what does Microsoft want? They want 75% of the profits of it. We're already paying for the 3 cents to run it. Like, so you got to give me some coin on top of that. So it's going to be expensive when it rolls out. It's definitely not going to be free. So like all of the hype that you have now is based on ChatGPT somehow being free forever. And therefore I'm going to write all my marketing content through this thing.
Guess what? We're already rolling out premium version.
Pro. It's already going to be charged.
Of course they are.
You know,
it's already a charge. There's already going to be a thing. So there's a waiting list for this thing to be charged for it.
Yep.
We don't know what this is going to cost yet. They haven't said, but there will be a cost for it, and we know what happens. It will be probably per query, and we know what happens when they roll out a charge for these things. Remember GitHub Copilot?
Adoption
I thought it was the
down.
Greatest thing on the planet until they charged $10 a month for it.
Right.
And everyone was like, I'm
the
not
other
using
thing
that
you have to really understand is what a query is going to be. So like, let's say that I type in a prompt, okay? That might generate 14 queries or 25 queries because of the way the prompt is constructed. And that's what people don't understand. It's not just like, hey, it's one sentence. There's a lot of things that will be broken out here. So that prompt may cost you $12 or something like that. And you got to ask yourself a question, is $12 worth the marketing content or the 30 YouTube channels titles I might get back?
Here's the thing. This is just going to be a niche thing. It's going to be a niche thing for a niche amount of people. Here's where it really comes into play. Is when you make a $10 billion investment, as much as LinkedIn is worth to Microsoft right now, 6% of its kind of portfolio of products, you're going to see this thing come into cloud services. You're going to see it used in Office, which we've already seen articles about, them integrating basically Clippy on steroids, right? Everyone remember Clippy, virtual assistant?
Microsoft Word will finish sentences for you or write your article.
Exactly. It'll be built into Windows. It'll be built into gaming. It'll be part of LinkedIn. It'll cross all of these different things. It's not OpenAI and ChatGPT isn't the product. It is a service to another product.
Yeah.
That's what.
So where's the money to be made on this? Like, so like a lot of people think the money's made of me like, I'm going to automate my marketing thing. So I see a lot of articles about this that just drive me insane. Like, What I can do, I can automate the landing page development. I can automate the marketing development. I can automate the phone calls to people, and it'll close the deal for me. I'll just sit at home and make $10 million. I actually seen videos proposing this. Well, number one, the first thing we have to do is not ascribe magic to something we already think is magic. So we're taking it forward, 6 steps forward of what it can do today. It can't build the landing page for you. It can produce some HTML that you in then turn have to integrate with something, and then you have to figure out how to publish it. And then you're saying, well, it could publish it too. It could just write a script to publish. But it doesn't do it today. So
right.
So in other words, I can't start a business right now today to be able to make it do all of these things, And
here's an article talking about exactly this. If any of you out there use DevTO, and if you don't, you should. It's a cool little plugin for your browser. It gives you, whenever you open a new tab, it gives you new. If I go to Control T, look, you'll see it opens up new articles for me to read. And here it is. Look, here's this article right down here for me. It's sat on my homepage for a minute, and I've read it. And it's basically, you'd think by the title about coding is dead, AI take over. If you read this article, I'll kind of summarize it here, but he asked it to perform something. He gave it a writing prompt. It gave him a solution, but it had a side effect. The side effect was it wasn't taking into account this async exit hook that he was using here. It didn't understand the complexity of his problem. So he kind of clarified the problem. He got another answer back. He needed a little bit more clarification. He clarified it a third time, and eventually came up with a solution that he was kind of happy with. But this is somebody who understands this, right? Because here's the outcome for this. His eventual outcome is that it could help us a lot, even writing code for us, but it is us who actually think and resolve the issue thoroughly.
Right.
It couldn't come up with, from his initial prompt, it couldn't come up with a final solution. You had to clarify to get to that final solution.
Let me put my point of contention. So go scroll up a little bit, all right, and to where it shows what his last prompt was.
This one.
So the question is going to come down to is this the way we want to code or not? Do we want to write English like this with that much words to code? Or will we use a purpose-built language to code because it's more succinct, it's faster to do? And the second thing is I have to know a lot about the underpinnings of the libraries and everything and how 100%. It's going to build it for me to even do it anyway. And so ultimately, if this guy's a really good developer, could he have done this faster on his own with other tools that create boilerplate code to begin with and just fix it? And my argument is going to be for the talented coders, it may be quicker to do it on your own because it's just going to be, it just gets in the way. It's not really, it breaks your train of thought. It breaks what you're doing. And it's not really helpful to do that. That's why I think, and this is my opinion, I can't prove that's going to happen. When you look at GitHub Copilot, that's kind of where it's going to end, somewhere in that range where it looks at a micro level problem. It's not going to really solve the big macro problems. The moment you give it something really large and complex with a lot of things, it fails at that. It's really good if you can describe it distinctly in small sets, it can do it. And then you got to say, okay, is it cost worthy to do that? But here's the thing that I think is Fantasyland right now today, maybe not in 20 years or 30 years from now, is that the CTO is going to walk in with a business idea, type that into something like ChatGPT, and it's going to generate a mobile app that makes $100 million in the App Store. And if you believe that, you don't understand how apps are built. That means that you shouldn't rely on that when you're talking to these. I'm just going to call them. They're the new tech bros. They used to be the crypto bros, and now we have the
They moved
AI
on to
bros.
Web3. Now they're in AI.
Yeah, Web3, and then now it's AI bros that are sitting there in the t-shirt and the shorts telling you you can just make your app. You can automate the thing. I'm telling you right now, try to, without knowing how to code, give it to your mom, somebody who doesn't know anything about software development, say, build me an app, put it in the App Store.
Oh, ask somebody who's non-technical, right, to use ChatGPT to put you up a published web page. A single page
can't do it.
With any content on it. It can't do it. So you can't say
and
that
everyone's
you're doing away with
that
developers.
I'm a boomer, that I don't see the future of this. And I'm telling you right now, man, if you go to a bank, rolling code is a freaking problem, man. It's always been a problem. And even with things like DI and, automated things that we're always, automated deployments, we have all of these things built into Git. It's still a problem, man, where we have to write custom things to do, to solve custom problems, and you just can't generate that stuff because the moment it comes complex, it's too hard.
Yep.
You know.
Yep.
I made this joke. Like you're working at the bank. Yeah, there are a bunch of marketers trying to sell you that they're going to use ChatGPT to generate marketing content for you.
There's a bunch of scammers who moved on from crypto into Web3 who are now, trust me, it's the same group of people who are now trying to scam people using AI. It's just the next thing. Just be wary, be educated in this area. Like, critically
Buy
think.
my coins.
Critically think. If it's too good to be true, it's too good to be true. You can't just have an AI throw up an app, because if there was, the App Store would be run over with them right now. And guess what? It's not.
You can't make them. You can't do it. So this is what I think. Like, then let's look at this. Let's say that we go all the way to Fantasyland, Kevin. We go all the way to Fantasyland, and this thing can do all the things that people say it can do right now. When you look at the sheer volume of code that has been written, it will never overcome all that. Like, there's a reason why most banks today still run on COBOL. And
we were talking about this yesterday.
It should run on other things. Well, I know they won't rewrite it.
They just slapped on modern front ends onto a mainframe.
They put front ends
end
on it, but they won't, because it's working. And so it's really hard to integrate that at that level to build things that are already built and be a bug hunt, be on the bug hunt, be able to resolve issues, do all that kind of stuff. It just won't do it. And one of the more famous, I'm not going to mention his name because I don't want to give this guy any credit whatsoever, but he was saying one of the biggest uses for AI is like, it can automate your Tinder account. It can make you look great. It can talk to the girl for you on the phone in your voice so that you can build relationships with people. And I'm like, well, they're already doing that on Tinder, dude. Like, you show up and you're like, hey, that's not your profile.
This guy's like, he's just trying to basically make it the ultimate way to catfish somebody. Like, that's where we're taking this. That's where we want to use AI. That's where we want to take AI. Like, that's just going to be its number one usage. Like,
that's a high use of society's time right there, to catfish people, so it's kind of funny. All right.
Yep. Okay.
All right,
so here you go. What do you think about this? Jason says, I think the thing you miss about ChatGPT is the version that is public and people are using are like 4 versions behind the latest language models. I don't even know whether that's true. But even if it is, we were talking about this yesterday. We were talking about you can only make decisions based on what you know today. If we take this to the nth degree, we've got Skynet, right? So is that what we're just going to do? We're going to assume Skynet. So let's just finish ourselves right now.
Kevin. I'm going to move out into the country and live under a rock because the robots are coming. Like,
exactly.
No,
and that's what some people are genuinely thinking, though. They're not going to that degree, but they do believe that that's the case, and they think it's going to happen in a few years. So it's like they just quit.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is, unless you've worked in a software job on a big company, you'll realize the complexities they face. Not only here's the other thing that drives me insane is like, ChatGPT is the business guy that's running the tech team. So if you've worked on a tech team, you coders, raise your hand. Hey, I've worked on a tech team. You know exactly what I'm going to say. The guy walks into the meeting, whiteboards some ideas, and half of them are stupid. Like, you're just like, what is that? Like, what are you talking about, man?
Hold on. Is this the putting the flag on the button?
Yeah, putting the flag on the button. And then they proceed to tell you that's easy. Do it in 2 weeks. I'll see you later. And then you wonder why projects fail, because number one, the business people that are writing the checks, and they get credit for writing checks, don't understand the problem to begin with from a technical level. The technical people are telling them something different. Like, we can't build that in 2 weeks, man. That takes too long. That's easy. One time I had a business development person tell me this exactly in a meeting of the software that I wrote. If I knew how to code, I'd be better than you at your job. I'm like, well, that's the whole trick.
That's so good. You're like, yeah, no doubt. Sure, maybe you would.
Okay.
Hold on. If you were a better coder than me, you would be a better coder than me. Okay, yeah, that logic works out. Yeah. Well done.
I mean, that's me saying if I walked up to Kevin Durant, if I was 7'1" and could shoot like you, I'd be better than you.
Yes, exactly. Okay. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly.
Come back to me when that's the case.
Exactly, because that's just a purely hypothetical, isn't it? Which is a lot of the stuff with this AI stuff. We're jumping straight to conclusions. We're taking ChatGPT at its face value and saying, well, okay, it has problems. It can only do these things, but where's it going next? We don't know where it's going next. What I would say,
Jason, the guy, he says the thing I'm missing is this. Here's the one thing I want you to.
There you go. He does agree it's not replacing developers, by the way, just to clarify that.
Check this out, Jason. Think about this for a second. before we assign super magic to it, what if this is the best that it can be right now? Right. What if we are seeing the pinnacle of what they can do, and they're just promising us the moon, but we really can't get there?
They just made $10 billion promising us the moon.
Of doing this. Yeah. They have a bad habit of doing this.
They just made $10 billion, or likely to make $10 billion by promising the moon. So it's not like they're not incentivized to promise us the moon.
Right. Exactly. And so, like, you know, yeah, it can go places. It maybe can do these things, but what you should do, and you should always do, is make decisions based on where it's at today. That's why we say this all the time. Don't follow the latest JavaScript framework. Follow the one people are using right now, especially when you're trying to break in. Like, you know, like if you've already broke in, yeah, go look at these other frameworks. That's why I will say, even though I'm a fan of Blazor, that's not the only thing you should know right now in this current market. It's better to know more things that are more stable and in demand today. So we got to base our decisions on today. But clearly, people projecting jobs and whatever, this is a 10-year roadmap, man. Like maybe a 20-year roadmap, maybe a 30-year roadmap. So if you're sitting out and you're 31 years old trying to decide what you're going to do, you're
yeah, you don't have to worry about it.
You don't have to worry about it till you're 70. So like, what's the point? You know, so like, you know, and if you get a 10-year run making 150 plus at something, and then it does come true, and like 10 years from now, there's no more devs. Okay, it'll be replaced by something else.
I also have my own opinions around this too, and I've said this a lot before, but around regulation.
Yes,
the regulation will certainly, if not kill it, but will certainly stifle it. We've used this analogy before, but we've talked about flying cars before. We could all own flying cars today, right? We could. The technology is there. They've literally built them. There are other reasons there are other reasons why we don't have flying cars. Regulations, cost. The giant one, nobody can afford a $400,000 flying car. And then there's a bunch of other things that hold it back. It's the same thing with this. You were talking about this morning. Trust me, the EU are going to stamp this thing out. If you're in Europe, forget this thing even exists, because you ain't going to be using it. I guarantee it.
So you think that when Microsoft rolled out Windows back in its heyday and they integrated Internet Explorer, you thought there was a problem there. When they roll out the one AI that controls all of human knowledge, and they're going to say, we're going to use this for everything, and you're thinking that countries are going to sit by and go, yeah, we're going to let that happen.
The EU's just like, no.
You know,
so there's one region that's definitely out. I have no question about it being out. It's not even
the second one is intellectual property. So like I've said this quite a bit too. Like, all right, can they copy because make no mistake, OpenAI is copying everything on the internet. They're the worst case of plagiarism ever. They copy everything. Stack Overflow. They've copied every internet article. They copy every image on Shutterstock. They've copied all that stuff. So do they have the right to do that? I think people are going to challenge that in court and say, you just can't have a blanket copy to everything. You know, like you've got to pay people for their content. Second,
it's got to be opt-in.
If you create something with it and it significantly copies something else to give you a creation, the fact is, do you own that intellectual property or not? And so like, I showed the comic book one in our last live section, but like the comic book looked a lot like Zendaya. They called it Zara. I mean, like even used the same name. Yeah. It's clearly a copy. You can't, you're going to run into problems with that. So if you're using copywritten stuff to make your thing, that's going to land the company that you're trying to build in hot water and trouble, or even lose the IP altogether. You lose in court.
Right.
So that's the other couple of challenges it faces.
Yep.
The third one is it's wrong.
That's the other one too. And yes, Paul, I agree. That's exactly what we're saying. Legislation.
Yeah, it's going to slow it down, man. Like
just because we can doesn't mean that we will. Flying cars, we can, but we don't.
Yeah. The problem is everyone's going to rush out there, you know, and then they're going to get the pantsuit off of them because, you know, they're using copyrighted software to build their thing, and, you know, and trust me, man, if something from yes, I know. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I know.
We were actually talking about this morning, weren't we? Talking about lawyers will find a way to legally sue this thing somehow. There is always a way. Lawyers will find a way to make money. This will be the next way they can make money.
Put this way, if you ask ChatGPT or GitHub Copilot to make you a operating system that's like Windows and you got it out there and you got market share, Microsoft will sue the pants off you to get it back.
Yeah.
And their software made it. They'll probably come back and say, we made that. Like that's from our AI. I mean, like,
you actually have your prompt right here. We see that you asked it to make your own version of Microsoft Windows. Don't lie.
And somehow that got to our kernel code, and like that's ours. You don't own that. Yeah. And Apple would do the same thing to defend their patents and their IP. They're litigious.
I think the legislation ends up being, and the regulation ends up being, ultimately something like this has to be opt-in. Or at least at minimum has to have the ability to opt out, but I think it's going to be opt-in, and when nobody opts in, you have this
because I want to get paid,
and there's no adoption, so it gets stifled.
I mean, YouTube. The reason YouTube is successful because they pay creators. Now, should they pay us more? Yes, I want like more money on that ad fee, but but we do get paid for that, so that's kind of cool.
Just to clarify, it's not a lot.
It's not a lot. I wish it was more.
It's definitely not a lot. It funds our tacos. That's about it.
Yeah, our taco money. Yeah, exactly.
that's generally about it. It's not much more than that. Yeah. So some super interesting stuff going on with OpenAI. So we'll see. We'll see this $10 billion from Microsoft putting $10 billion into an idea at this point. See how that plays out.
And they're going to come back to OpenAI and say, we expect our money back. Generate some money. You're going to start charging for this thing.
See if that happens.
And if they don't, if adoption doesn't happen, it can get canceled like your favorite Netflix show in a minute. They'll say, well, you know what? We don't really need this because it doesn't make money. And so.
Right. There's going to be, so there's going to be some other competition too. There's going to be other people in this realm. There are some others already.
Google
it's not
has
just like one. Google has one. There's some other companies out there. ChatGPT and OpenAI are getting the news because it was this proof of concept consumer-facing product that was free to use, and anybody had something to put into it, right? Your mom
did really good magic tricks,
Exactly.
It's like Penn and Teller suddenly showed everyone how to saw the lady in half, and everyone was like,
and we're like,
I'm
and it was easy to do.
Now,
Exactly.
It's crazy. I guarantee you they are.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Until someone tells them not to, and they force them not to do it, and then they'll lie about that until the cows come home. Because what they want to do is they want to get this thing to a certain level where it's like you have to have it, and then it won't matter how it's trained at that point,
Yep.
I think they are for sure.
Yeah.
And that's if you're using GitHub, it's being scanned, and so I guarantee you my iterations of FizzBuzz is in the collective. It's in there, man.
Right. Because I'm assuming there's some kind of licensing thing, right? Because Microsoft owns the whole thing.
Yeah.
And they're in this thing, and you've probably signed away as part of your licensing GitHub, even though it's private, Microsoft can still see it. So there's some legal loophole there that you're probably right. Even everything on Git's in there is my guess.
Right. It is. You just know that it's being scanned somehow, some way.
So Paul's working on a plugin to use OpenAI to generate SEO descriptions.
So,
cool.
The question is,
the thing.
Can we make money with AI? And the answer is yes. What we're trying to tell you is it's not going to replace developers. We think it's going to make more.
Yeah, it's a tool. Paul's doing exactly the thing this is exactly it. He's using the tool.
You absolutely should take it, pay for the API, generate keywords for marketers, because that's the tool they want in the marketplace. They want someone to write their blog for them. They want an AI generated blog.
Yep.
When
you've got this, Paul, by the way, send me a thing and I'll use it on Foundry as a test.
Yeah. And so, and they also want to generate the tags for YouTube video. Can you do that? Based on what are those tags are being used? Those tools already exist. Those kind of things will happen. Can you use AI for other things? Yeah. What we're saying is there'll be software used to integrate it, to build on top of it, to make things useful, which is what we said about Web3. People didn't believe it. Web3 is a thing, Bobby. You need to get on the train. I'm like, you can make a smart contract, but you're going to need a website built around it to utilize said smart contract. So, and then there was other problems with it. Like, the reason it's never going to take off, in my opinion, is like it's built on Ethereum, which has this variable price on it. So like if your contract costs $1 one day and then $42 the next day, it's really hard to build a business on that model.
We had some really good discussions around this, didn't we? Because we were like, what business could you build on this? What would you build on it? And every time we came down to, well, it's too volatile. You couldn't build anything on it. It was too.
And so, so like I even thought about like at one point saying, let's take the certificates that we get out of Coder Foundry, Let's turn them into an NFT, make them public, build a website around them to make them discoverable so that someone could vet whether this person
basically validated, isn't it? Yeah, it was great. It was on the blockchain, validating the certificate. It's a great idea. Until you realize the cost.
I'm like, that's a terrible idea. We'll just put it in SQL, you know, like
yeah, because the cost was way prohibitive and it was way fluctuating. One day it might cost you $20 to do it. The next day it was $200. It was, I mean, so and it really was a tenfold.
Validates a certificate, and it cost me $37 to do just to do the validation. I'm like, wow, nah, that's. Yeah. Let's just put that image somewhere and someone can go look it up with a SQL query. I mean, like, so that's the thing is some people take these technologies and you'll go, oh, wow, that's really cool. And then it's like, well, is it? I mean, like, let's look at it. Is it cost effective? Is it reasonable? Will it be adopted? Is it something we can base the business around?
Yep.
And the answer is going to be in ChatGPT, maybe not, because the cost is going to be pretty expensive.
We knew people were trying to shoehorn Web3 into everything. Right? Yep. Literally everything. And we talked about this at the time. We're like, does that really need to be Web3? Like, no. I mean, do we really need to put that on the blockchain?
Of everything? You know, like, you know, I don't think so.
No, we don't.
Do I need to put all my tweets on the blockchain? Do they need to be, you know, community? Yep, that's a Bobby tweet. Yep, that's it. Yep, that's it. You know, like, no, we don't need that. Man. We can look at the tweet. We can look at the Twitter app and get that and figure out who he's logged in. That's his account. So, like, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
So like, and then Jason's got a point. Yeah, you could use Grammarly. I use it every single day. Will they use AI tools to make Grammarly better? They probably already have. Yeah. And that's my point. Think of micro solutions and not macro solutions. When you roll out a tool that says, I will write my blogs for you and generate the video for you, it's probably not going to be as good as other articles that you could have wrote, a great writer would write and a great video editor would make. That's the problem with it.
Yep. Let's talk about one more thing before we finish up here, because I want to say big congratulations to Travis. Travis is one of our graduates of our last cohort. He graduated in the end of December. And Travis won the course report sweepstakes. He won $500.
$500, man. He should buy us tacos.
I know, right? I'm jealous. He won $500 and got a little write up here on course report. So I was like, man, that's awesome. That's super cool. So, and he said really nice things about us. So that's great. I guess Travis did really well in class. So you know him better than I do.
He did really well. So he's going to be working as a coder soon here.
Yeah, he's actually he graduated. They say December 16th. So he's currently in the market
right around Christmas.
Yeah, always looking for a great dev. Travis, he's right here. You can go check him out on the course report. Yeah, massive congratulations, Travis. Thanks to Jess and Liz at Course Report 2 for running this. It's great. It gives an incentive for like our graduates to go in and actually leave us a review.
That would be great.
Which is great.
If you've been
which is great. Exactly. If you go to Foundry, please go leave us a review here. They do validate that you've been, so not everybody can go and leave us a review. We're not asking anybody who didn't go leave us a review. We only want genuine graduates to go leave us a review. We have 114. We'd love it to be more. And you have a chance of winning. So they do this draw thing. I didn't even know they did this because we've never had anybody win before. But they have this $500 gift certificate for leaving a verified review. So,
cool.
Yeah,
awesome
good stuff. So congratulations to Travis. I don't know if he's watching or ever watches this. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But hopefully.
All right. Any final questions we want to answer? Anyone out there?
Let's see. Had a couple of other things.
Or tacos are on the agenda. We still got 5 minutes.
What did Ben say? Ben said outside of clinical hours for nurses, I think a boot camp for nurses would be awesome. So many people want to help nurse, but the money required is. We talked about this morning too. It's funny.
We talked about Ben. Are you listening to our conversations, man? Like,
I know.
We talked about this. We don't know if boot camp for nurses can be a thing, and I'd have to understand like what the training actually is. And I do think there's some clinical hours, working with a hospital, doing some real things.
It's hands-on, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think the shortcut right now to nursing, to be a nurse practitioner, is like a 2-year community college degree. It's an Associate of Applied Science in Nursing or whatever that is. That's the current shortcut. Whether there's another one that could be a boot camp style one, I don't know. But that's the current way I think a lot of
I think someone who is a nurse or who is a doctor would have to build that boot camp.
Definitely.
Kind of
100%.
Could you do it? Like the problem is with nurses is the job's is way more important than software dev, like where you can injure things, like, you can shut the airlines down, that kind of thing. But like nurses is a little bit different. You're taking care of humans. And so we expect a level of professionalism may be a higher bar. And so like, I don't know if you can do that in 3 months, but maybe 6 months, maybe 1 year, maybe 2 years. I don't know. I think there's some clinical hours that you got to do anyway. Plus you got to have the education part. You can do the education part, I think, but the actual practical stuff, working under a nurse and,
Yeah.
So you always hate it when you go get your blood drawn, Kevin, and you see the girl doing it or the guy doing it, and he's like 20. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get 4 pokes right now.
That's funny. Hey, Breepow, thank you.
Today.
Exactly. Breepow, thank you. Tacos on me today. We appreciate it. Thank you so much for the super chat.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Pulled pork tacos on me. I like it. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. Umar says, hey guys, I remember 2 years back when I watched the live session, was inspired by you guys. Now I'm working with DevOps engineer for 1.5 years. Thank you guys. That's awesome.
Tell us how difficult, like when you think about ChatGPT, how much is involved in the DevOps position, which is something that has evolved because of cloud. We're going to go into this in the video that we're making, but like these things happen and we make these inventions and it becomes sort of easier to do, but then the expectations rise, so it makes it more complicated at the end of the day, like where we have to do way more things. DevOps wasn't a thing 15 years ago. You just take your zip file and copied it over to the web server.
Right.
That was DevOps. But
you're
now
a whole career, a whole thing spawned out of complexity.
Because of cloud inventions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So and it's complicated. Imagine like some prompt engineer is going to like do that now. It's not happening, man.
Yep.
So that is there's got to be a lot more inventions that come down the road to do this. And they're like, well, it's just scripts, Bobby. I know if it was just that easy, everyone would do it. Like it's not as easy as what these people that are making these claims don't do this, and they don't understand the meetings I go to, the things that I have to do, like the complexity of AWS and Azure, and like why it's a problem. That's why there's DevOps engineer teams for this stuff, because it's a problem.
And that's what we're going to talk about in one of our next videos. We're going to talk about how things over time have gotten easier. We've become more abstracted away from the more technical things. It became easier. But the requirements fed into that have become way more difficult. Like, can you imagine I think the scenario we're talking about is, could you imagine what you were able to do in the mid-90s technology-wise and what you were able to build then versus what you can build now? It's a massive difference. It's so much more. Even though people could say it's got easier to do through no-code tools or whatever, it's way more complex. Way more complex than it was back then.
The most complex thing was the marquee tags or HTML, and so now we have frameworks and middleware and like back-end languages and databases and CSS. People hate CSS. We have Bootstrap. People think Bootstrap's the hardest thing to learn. It's just this, and then you got JavaScript. Though the 13 flavors of JavaScript and JavaScript libraries that you need to know to make something work. It's just way more difficult than it used to be.
Yep.
Granted, we're not dealing with registers or writing bytecode down to at the kernel level of the CPU. I get that. Maybe that's beyond most of us.
Right. It's not more technical, but the requirement is asking more of you. So therefore,
the output is definitely more
different way.
Than it was. Before you design a screen for a COBOL screen, that was easy, man. Green screen, just lay some fields out, put an F9 button at the bottom, you're good to go. That's all it can do, and then now we have relational databases and HTML, CSS, JavaScript. We have all of these and then sometimes our stuff has to work on desktop, mobile, and the web. So we got 3 ton of UIs that we got to build for a certain app and integrate it with a backend microservice or a monolith. So there's a lot of things that go on to make modern web things work that is way more complicated than it used to be. That's why COBOL engineers phased out. Web came around and they're like, nah, I'm not learning all that, man. It used to be so much easier to do. And in a lot of ways, they're both right and wrong. Like, yeah, it was easier to do with a procedural top-down language.
Right.
But, I don't know. I just think that that's why I think more developers are going to increase. Imagine the first company that rolls out an AI-only development staff, okay? And then the stuff quits working. They're going to have to bring in a lot of developers to fix it.
There's going to be a lot of dev jobs right there to fix it.
Yeah.
It will be,
exactly.
I agree. It will.
It's going to make more opportunities for more people. And so I don't think we need to fear that this is going to replace our job. Just know that it's going to, web development, we told you in the beginning, 370,000 jobs in the US. it's going to grow by 25% over the next 10 years. And that's probably conservative, because they're not even probably accounting for like an AR revolution or some other type of screen shift that comes out that makes us have to write code. And AI will always be a laggard behind that. Even if we do get it fully integrated, it will only know to what it's been trained at that point. And so like, it's always going to be behind the curve. So the new cutting edge things will always be coders writing things, because that's where the creativity comes from. That's where the problem solving happens. And the boilerplate, yeah, maybe we can generate some boilerplate stuff, but like that's going to be left behind the modern cutting edge things for forever, probably, but at least for the foreseeable future. Yeah.
One last thing, because this is like I didn't pay Kevin to ask about this or anything, but do you believe the self-paced course prep should be a junior?
We've had people, yeah, man, we think so, Kevin. I mean, like people are getting jobs out of our self-paced course. That's why we made it. I mean, that's why it is as difficult as it is. That's why you build big projects out of it, and not just simple things. It's hard. I mean, like, you know, it's like
some people hate us when they take the course and they're like, it doesn't.
Yeah, they're like, what?
It's too difficult.
All this stuff? Too long. Why is this course 100 hours long? You know, like.
Yeah.
So we think
it is what it is.
Yeah. So we think that we think it can prep you to get a course, to get a job. The course, of course, that's our job. That's what we think it'll be.
We've had people who, I don't know if any of them are here. If any of them are, please shout up. We've had people here who have taken the course and gotten jobs from it. So
yeah. Now, here's what I will say, Kevin. Here's what we're not saying. Just completing it and just putting a badge on it. It's not a check mark. Like, you got to build these projects, talk about the projects during the interview, and if you can do that, you can win. The projects themselves are good enough to get you an interview, I think. Like, you show these things, you're like, wow, that's really cool. Let's talk to that guy. Let's talk to Kevin. And then Kevin has to be able to talk about those projects to win an interview. And I think that's the distinction there. And that's why we made the interview course on there.
That's why we have a course.
To show you how to talk about it. So we're trying to like encircle this whole thing with education so that you can get a job as a dev. We don't want it to be mythical. We want it to be something that you can grasp onto.
Yeah, we're not a company that teaches you for academic reasons.
Yeah, we want you to get a job.
Teaches you for practical reasons. We literally want you to get a job. We're not just out here teaching you because we can teach you, which that's some guys, that's some other brand's role is just to.
We don't want to be gatekeepers. We want this job, this next job, to be accessible to everyone that can put in the time and effort to learn. I mean, it's not magic. We don't have magic over here. We're not selling you ChatGPT. We're not doing that. We're telling you this is what you got to know how to do to be able to code. So. Cool.
Yep, definitely.
All right. Look at Bree Power dominating the
I know
the leaderboard.
Is that, there. Were you the last 3? I guess
he's got 4 out of 5.
We owe you like you need to come out and have tacos with us. Like that'd be kind of
exactly.
Cool. Yeah. If you're ever around, come by. We'll get tacos. Definitely. I just had to show that up there. That's great. Thank you for the super chat today. We super appreciate it. Thanks everybody for hanging out. We'll be back again next week. We'll have another video. We're working on it right now. We're kind of working on the nuances of it, but another video coming out probably the next week or so. Probably before we're live again next week. We haven't shot it yet, but we'll aim for it to be out sometime next week. So look out for that. We appreciate it. Go watch our last video too. It needs more views. We'd super appreciate it.
Needs more views, creating luck.
Go give us a like. Go give us a like here. We super appreciate it. And yeah, thanks for hanging out, asking questions. We love doing this every week.
And listen, don't believe the hype about ChatGPT. Keep coding. Keep doing it. It's going to pay off.
We'll catch you guys later.
See you guys.